This is Gemara Chagigah Daf Chof Beis, and as we begin a new month, today's Rosh Chodesh. The new month will begin tomorrow, but all the learning has been generously sponsored. L'zecher Nishmas Rav Shlomo ben Rav Meir. The learning of the entire Chabura should be an incredible schos. Rav Shlomo Rav Meir should be oiled to a higher and higher place in Gan Eden Shamayla. This is in conjunction with the publishing of the new book, Baruch Hashem, the new Sefer, the laws of Chanukah and Purim. Hopefully, within the next few days, the Sefer should reach all stores. Baruch Hashem, and all the learning in the Derech Habura should be an incredible schos. The Rav Shlomo ben Rav Meir should be oiled to a higher and higher place in Gan Eden Shel Maila, as well as learning should be choshir for Yisrael Chaim the Baruch Shemim Razit Zikid Shandes Shanama Kolam Rav Zerjin Zikid Rav Shendo Shema ben Chayav Big Ben Teli Shamil Levi Zahava, as well as schos for Rosh Shema Shmuel Yis ben Revei Ben Ged Chaim Yisrael Sham Sim Reis Zor Baskin Zit Levi Yis Chayzai Yisrael Ben Dil Eliezer Paris ben Yud Shalei Sham Zan Ami Shavik Shem Khan Shmom Til Din Khan Reizim Chay Basmina Adinena V'Shem Minas Vigu V'Vig V'Vig Shem Tazin Estar Min Akol Yisrael Baskila Shemizachel Esther Yehud Des for Lavem Rechladeir when Chana V'Gal Pero Bas Esther Yal Yehud Des Bas Leish Shlam Zver and Gabriel Bas Fluma Yisrael Yitzli Ben Dina V'Soich Shar Chali Yisrael, and again, hopefully by now all the CM information has been sent out. This coming Tuesday night in Mirz Hashem, which is the day that we'll be finishing Seder Moed, that night in Flatbush. Looking forward, as many people that could come. I would love to meet you, to celebrate the incredible milestone 2.5 years of learning Daf together every single day. Absolutely incredible. But perhaps even more important is to give us the chizik as we go forward into Yavamas, into Nashim, V'siyat Dishmaya. But every Masechta has its challenges, its difficulties. So today we're in Chagigah, Chav Beis, and the past few days we've been seeing that even perhaps minor, small Masechtas have their difficulties as well. So we pick it up on Chav Beis and Aleph on the top line, in which we said that the size of the hole to transmit Tumah has to be 2 fingers that could turn inside of it. And this was the discussion and explaining the second reason why you're not going to be taival one kli inside another kli is because you might come to be taival a pin or something very, very small inside a kli that the opening is very minuscule, the opening is not the appropriate size, and in that case, what's going to happen? And in that case, the tefillah will not be good. So says the Gemara, Savar lo k'had Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav Hua. That which we're saying right now, Rava, who was one that said that this whole din, the din that you're not allowed to be taiva one kli inside another kli, was because you're going to be lacking potentially in the sheer kishvei feres hanoid, in the sheer that little opening. Rava holds like whom? Like Rav Nachman Amar Rav Hua. That what? He explained to us, Yud Aleph Mailoi Shanukan, there are 11 Mailois, 11 stringencies of Kodesh over Chuma. Shish Rishain is being Kadesh ben Chulin. But the first 6 of them apply across the board. Whether Kodesh, whether being the Chulin Shenasa Altayers like Kodesh. Even Chulin, that's even on that high level. Achraina is the last 5. La Kodesh only applied to Kodshim, Avlo the Chulin Shenasa Altayers like Kodesh. So Rava is seemingly going within this opinion of Rav Nachman B'Shem Rabbi Rav Hua, and the reason being that the difference between these 2 categories is that the last 5 cases in which we're saying do not apply to Chulin Shenasa the entire Kodesh are not to do Tadin D'Oraisa of Tumah, but rather only a din d'Rabbanan, therefore does not apply because there's no chash Tumah D'Oraisa. Ask the Gemara 6 lines down, Ma'ika being the Rava, the Ravilla. So we had 2 ways of explaining yesterday's daf, 2 fabulous ways of explaining the Chumrah that you're not going to be able to taiva a kli within a kli. Either Rav Illa taught us that we're afraid of chatzitza. Why would there be a chatzitza? The inside kli might weigh heavily on the wall of the kli, thereby creating an interposition, a chatzitza between the kli and the wall. And Rava said, like we started off discussing today, the issue of that it might not have the requisite opening of Kishvei Feres Hanoid, and therefore it would invalidate the tefillah. So says the Gemara, what's the difference between the 2 opinions? Now you know what the difference is. Sal, a basket. Vagar gusni, or a strainer, shamilon kilin ve'etbilon, that you fill up with utensils and you taivel. This actually sounds very similar to that which we do often. A lot of mikvahs, they have a big a big box, a crate, plastic crate guy with holes in it, and you're taivel with it. Now the truth is, just to point out, our crates are not this discussion, because our crates have big holes inside the crate. Therefore, this discussion does not begin. But says the Gemara, the nafkamina between Rava and Rav Illa is going to be if you taivel inside a crate. What's the difference? The difference is going to be that in this case there's no concern of Rav Illa. What was Rav Illa's old concern? Rav Illa's old concern is Shema. You might come to be taivel in a basket with a teeny little opening. Says the Gemara, a basket, a large strainer never will have such a small opening. Therefore the concern will not exist. And therefore Rav Illa will allow you to be taivel inside this basket, even though it's kli b'staychli, even though it's utensil and a utensil. Rav Illa would allow it, where Rava would come along, and Rava says, excuse me, I said that completely incorrect. That was Rava. Rav Illa, who says that worried about the koiva, the heaviness of the kli, that would be a consideration over here. Again, let's speak it out properly. According to Rav Illa, that we're nervous the kli will weigh down on the wall, there is a concern over here with this basket. According to Rava, that it's just a din that you might come to be taivel at something with a small opening. This barrel never would have such an opening, therefore there's no concern. Explains the Gemara, 7 lines down, like we just spoke out. Ika, according to Rav Illa, that holds chatzitza, there's an issue. According to Mandam that says you might come to be taivel, says the mechatin v'tzinayriyos. Therefore, we are not concerned. I think we skipped. Let's go back for a second. Ma'ika bein Rava l'Rav Illa l'mandamar. One more time. Ma'ika. Sorry. My good other but according to Mandam, because of Xera, Shemayatvel, Mechotin, Vitzinaris, he might come to. You might come to be taivel, the needle of the spinning hook, but that's the whole concern. We do not have this concern because a barrel and a basket, a basket and a strainer, the gargusni, will never have such a small opening, so there's no concern. So according to Rava, there's no problem. According to Rav Illa, we have the regular concern. Says the Gemara, V'azda Rava l'taimei. And Rava, in which he's explaining that the issue is that one might come to be taivel in a barrel with an opening not the size of a shveiferes hanoid, not the requisite side, because it goes according to his reasoning. What's his reasoning? Dama Rava explains how we have a barrel, we have the strainer that's full up with utensils, and you taivel them to iron. It is tar umikva shalchalku bisal vegargusni. Now, if you have a mikvah, that the mikvah itself is divided, you make partitions into the mikvah with what? With a sal and a gargusni, with a basket or this large strainer. Then the opposite, then it does not work for him. Why not? Explains Rava. The whole ground is porous. They didn't have any fancy tiles in their mikvah. It was a porous ground. The ground is porous, and yet, even though the ground is porous, so water is going in and out, still you need to have memsa over there. So too says Rava, if I have my sal and my gargusni, it's true it's porous. It's true there's water that flows through it, but halachically we view it as its own area, and therefore if it splits up the mikvah, it's not going to work unless there's memsa in that area. And the Gemara points out that Vahani Mili, about 20 lines down, first word line is Mili is B'kli tar. This whole din is only if the kli is tar. Again, if the basket or the large strainer that you're using is tar, and then you put something else inside of it, that's going to be the case in which we're going to have this nafkamina between Rava and Rav Illa. Avol b'kli tamei, but if the kli itself, if the strainer itself is tamei, meaning it itself has to be taiveled, then everyone will agree it works. Why? Migu, Disalka, Tfila lekule gufe, Dimana, since the tefillah is working for the item itself, meaning we're saying now is a beautiful idea, split it up. Till now we've been saying, wait, maybe it's going to be a chatzitza, maybe we have any concerns. But says the Gemara, if the outside basket is tamei, if that basket itself needs tefillah, so since the tefillah works for the outside basket, salkalunami lekelim this it's also going to work for the kelim that are inside the basket. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, kelim shamilan, kelim vetbilan, we have a basket filled with baskets, on a utensil filled with a utensil, harei elu tahirin, it is tarvim loy taval mayim. And the Brisa says an interesting line, vim loy taval, if you didn't toivel the outer keli, mayim hamu uravim, if then the water is mixed together, and achiyu muravin kishveveres anod, and the only way it's going to work is if the water flowing back and forth is the size of a shveveres anod. And obviously, this last part of this brace is a little bit difficult. What exactly is going on? He did taivel it, he didn't taivel it. Says my kamar bim like tavel. What does that mean? He didn't taivel it. If he didn't taivel it, the story doesn't start. Says the Gemara, no hachi kamar. This is what it means. If you don't need to taivel it, why do you not need to taivel because that outside basket is tahar itself? Then the only way it's going to work is if the water flows back and forth through an opening the size of a shvaris ha-noid. But if not, if you need to taivel the outside basket, then the mere fact that the outside basket itself is becoming tahar will allow the contents inside to become tahar as well. And now, says the Gemara, based on the whole discussion from today, the discussion from yesterday, this machlekes Rava and Rav Hilla, the two ways of learning up the Mishnah, says the Gemara about Rav Hilla Tanai. By the way, this is a machlekes Tanaim that already has been had. The Tanya, as you learned in our Brisa, Salvi Gargusti Shamilan Kelan Vetbilan. We have this basket or the stranger, about 25 lines to the bottom of the Amid. Gargusti is the first word on the line. You have a basket or the large stranger that's filled up with Kelim Vetbilan, and you tell them Bein lekodesh bein lechuma tahirin. Says the Tanakama, whatever you are taiveling this basket for, it works. Abba Shal Omer, no. Lichuma, it works for chuma. Abba Loy lekodesh, but it does not work with Kodesh. What's this machlokes Tanakama and Abba Shal? According to Tanakama, seemingly he's going with the opinion of Rav Hilla. He's going with the opinion of Rava, He's going with the fact that you need to have an opening the size of a shveiferes anoid. And therefore, buy a basket, buy a large stranger like we strainer, like we keep on talking about, which doesn't have this concern that the tefillah is going to work for everything. Says the Tanakama, bein the kodesh, bein the chuma tahirin. However, comes along Abba Shal, and Abba Shal disagrees, and Abba Shal holds like Rav Hilla. Abba Shal holds like the first opinion, that what's the concern when you taivel one item in the next? That the inside keli will rest inside and cause a kvedus, cause a heaviness, create an interposition between the keli and the walls. That's what he's nervous about. And therefore, says Abba Shal, it even applies by the grusni, it even applies by the strainer, and therefore, Rava is going to like the Tanakama, and Rav Hilla is going with Abba Shal. Says the Gemara, Yachi, what you're saying is accurate, Chuma Nami. So why not Chuma also? Why did Abba Shal differentiate and say, L'Chuma Havaloi L'Kodesh? If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Answers the Gemara, Man Kamrinan, who are we saying this halacha for? That you're not allowed to taivel it for chuma chaverim. Chaverim meideyadi. Chaverim know the halachas. Chaverim are going to make sure that it's not going to be a keli b'tach keli. So with regard to truma, it's a bit of a double standard going on over here because it's different people. With regard to kachin, there's more of a concern. So you got to be concerned. With regard to truma, it's only getting into the hands of a chaver, of a talmid chacham. Therefore, there's no issue. But asking, really, yachi, kaidesh nami, by the case of kachim as well, why are we nervous? nervous. Explains the Gemara, that in the case of the Kodesh, we are worried that the Am Haaretz is going to see him toiveling the Kli for Kodesh, and he's going to go and do it as well. So we're concerned that the Am Haaretz is going to mimic the actions of the Gadol, of the Talmid Chacham. And once he sees him doing it for Kachim, the Am Haaretz will do it as well. Ask the Gemara, the Avi's Kasha, so Truma Nami Chazila. Basically, it's we don't understand. Is it Kodesh? Is it Truma? If it's for Truma, it's for Kachim. It's for Kachim, it's for Truma. If there's a concern that the Am Haaretz is going to see the Talmid Chacham being taivo an item by Kachim and do it himself, so be nervous about Truma as well. Explains the Gemara, Am Haaretz. Nami Chazila, Am Haaretz, Vazel Ve'etbol. The Am Haaretz is going to see and do the same. Answers the Gemara, Lo Mekablina Minei. We're not going to accept Truma from an Am Haaretz. Kodesh Nami Lo Mekablina Minei. Says the Gemara, so don't accept Kachim either from him. Answers Gemara, Havale Eva. No, you're going to start a fight. You're going to create resentment. Truma Nami Havale Eva. So Shkayach, what's the difference? We don't understand. If it's for Truma, it's for Kachim. It's for Kachim. It's for Truma. Answers the Gemara, Lo Ichbatle. We don't care about. We're not good. It does not bother the Am Haaretz if we don't take his Truma. Why not? He'll give this friend the Kohen who's Am Haaretz. If we don't take his Karbanis, he's going to get insulted. It's going to cause fights. But not accepting his Truma is not a problem because we'll give it to his private Kohen. Ask the Gemara weiter. So now, good. We answered up. We explained our Rav Illa and Rav are Machlekes Tanayim. Now says the Gemara, who is this opinion that says we're worried about evil, worried about animosity? Do we take into account if the Am Haaretz is going to be upset? Says the Gemara, it's Rav Yosi, the Tanya Rav Yosi, the Ma'akol, Ne'emonim al Tayris Yayim v'Shem Kol Yimais Hashana. What is the reason that everyone is believed for tahira of wine and oil the entire year? You know why? Says Rav Yosi, if we don't believe this Am Haaretz, he's going to say, forget you guys in the Beis HaMikdash. I'll build my own private altar and I'll make my own karbanos. And it doesn't work. He can't make his own bama. Bama is for a specific time period in Klal Yisrael. But in order to make sure that the Am Haaretz is not upset at us, that's why we're going to accept it from him. So says the Gemara, we're going to be in Rav Yosi that we're nervous for the feelings of the Am Haaretz. Amar Rab Haba, 10 lines on the bottom of the Amid. Nowadays we accept testimony from Am Haaretz. Whose opinion is that? Answers the Gemara, Keman ke Rav Yosi. Like the opinion of Rav Yosi, like we just said a moment ago, Rav Yosi is nervous, Am Haaretz is going to be upset at us. So too, we're going to accept these eidos. Why? Because we don't want him to be upset at us. And that's the end of this piece of Gemara. But now the Gemara says, let's go back to the bigger and larger discussion that we're having in the beginning today, the Machlekes Rav and Rav Illa. The Machlekes of being taivel one kli within another kli. And we differentiate in the Brisa between Truma and Kachim. And by Truma, we were not concerned because we're not going to accept Truma from the Am Haaretz. Ask the Gemara, good, we're not going to accept the Truma from the Am Haaretz. So it's not really a problem. But maybe we're going to borrow it. Maybe we're going to borrow an Am Haaretz Keli, which is really Tameh, and use it for our own Truma. Titanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Kli Cheres Matzil ala kol. A Kli Cheres saves everything. For example, you have a Kli Cheres, you have an earthenware vessel with a cover on top. Whatever is inside of it is always tahar. It's sitting in a house and there's a mace in the house. There's a mace under the same roof. Whatever is in that earthenware vessel is still tahar. Kli cheres matzil ala kol. Divrei Beis Hillel, says Beis Hillel. Comes along Beis Shammai, says Beis Shammai, it only helps for items that can't be rectified, for food and drink, and utensils and vessels in which cannot be purified in not a earthenware vessel. However, a non-earthenware vessel, according to Beis Shammai, would not be protected. It will become tamei, a metal pot, and go and put it in the mikvah. What's the problem? So Amr Lahem, Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel says to Beis Shammai, Amru, Ben Nema, what is the reason that you, Beis Shammai, are differentiating between food and a keli itself? Amru Beis Shammai retorts, Memneshu Tamei. The reason is because it's Tamei al Gavi Am Haaretz. It's because you have to be concerned that it has Toma from the Am Haaretz, and therefore, Memneshu Tamei al Gavi Am Haaretz, because it is this earthenware, this kli cheres that we're discussing is tamei because of the amaretz. The ein kli cheres, there it is. The ein kli tamei chayitz. Once the vessel itself becomes tamei, now it's no longer a barrier. Till now, you're allowing this kleli, this earthenware vessel, acting as a barrier, a force field. It pushes away all tama. But once the keli itself becomes tamei, no longer does it block, and now everything inside it will become tamei. So Amrlen Beis Hillel responds, but how can you say what you're saying? But you yourself agree that the food inside is tahar. So if you're telling me that the kli becomes tummy and it's game over, so how's the food tahar? Amr lehem Beishami responds, we're talking about that the food inside was made tahar. It was when? La'atzmai, as we turn over to Chavezim Beis, La'atzmai taharnu. When did I say my halacha, says Beishamai, that the food and drink inside his tar is for the amaretz himself. But if we make the kli tar, the kli is going to be used both by the amaretz and by us, the chaverim, us, the talmidei chachamim. So says Beishamai, there's nothing I could do. So the food I allow to be tar, because who cares? Amaretz will eat himself. But the vessel that I might come to get, now we have to be much more concerned. Tanya says, the Gemara quoting a brisa 2 lines down, Chav Beis and Beis. Omer Rav Yeshua, Baishli Midavrechem, says Rav Yeshua, I'm embarrassed from your words, Beishamai. Efshar Isha L'Shei Lasha Ba'areva, says Rav Yeshua, I don't understand, Beishamai, what you're talking about. You, Beishamai, just told me an incredible din. Says Rav Yeshua, let's play it out and you'll see it's ridiculous. How could it be? We have an Isha, we have a woman that's Lasha Ba'areva, she's kneading dough in a kneading bowl, a trough. And Isha Ba'areva Tameim. And there's a corpse in the house. What's the halacha? Everything under the roof is tummy. So the Isha is tummy. And the Areva, the mixing bowl is tummy. Shiva for 7 days. Ubatzek tar. But you're going to tell me the dough inside is tar? How can that be? She's tummy, the bowl is tummy, but the dough is tar? That's crazy, says Rav Yeshua. Similarly, Lugin Mali Mashkin. We have a flask full of liquids. Lugin tummy. You tell me the flask is tummy. Tummy Shiva for 7 days. Mashkin tahirin. And the mashkin inside is tar. So says Rav Yeshua to Beishamai, I don't understand what you're talking about. How could it be that the inside contents are tahar when she's tamei and the basket and the cup and everything else is tamei? Why would the contents inside be tahar? So there was a Talmud of Beis Medrash from the Talmidim of Beishamai, and Amar Lo, he responds to Yeshua, let me explain the reason. Amar Lo Amar, please talk. Amar Lo, so the Talmud explains, Kli tamei chaytzeitz, oyenoi chaytzeitz. Says the Talmud, Rav Yeshua, if I have a kli, I have a utensil that is tamei, could that act as a chatzitza? Could that act as a barrier and block tama? Amalei, no way, no chaitzis. Continues this Talmud. Kli shalam haaretz. If I have a vessel of an haaretz, tamei or tahar. What's the halacha? Is the vessel tamei or tahar? Amalei Rishu says tamei avada. And now says the Talmud, the third point, ve'emat aimer, you're not going to agree. Loi tamei. Kulam loi tamei, but if you tell the Amaretz, excuse me, that it's tamei, is he going to listen to you? You're telling me that the vessels of the Amaretz are tamei. Says the Talmud, defending his Rabbi Beishamai Shita to Rabbi Yeshua. Are you going to tell the Amaretz it's tamei? Is he going to listen to you? Of course not. And not only is he not going to listen to you, if you tell him tamei, you know what he's going to say? He's going to respond to you, Shalitar v'shalcha tamei. What are you talking about? Mine is tar and yours tamei. So it says Rav Yeshua, it's not going to work. V'zeh taima shel Beishamai. And that is the reasoning. And that is the reasoning of Beishamai that the Talmud told Rabbi Yehoshua. Before we finish the story in which Rabbi Yeshua is going to go and beg forgiveness for the fact that he didn't listen, he wasn't willing to understand the opinion of Beishamai, let's just understand that what the Gemara just said is that because of an impossibility, we almost have to cut our losses, and therefore we're going to deal differently with the keli and the liquids inside the keli. Miyad, Alach Rav Yeshua, Mili Rav Yeshua, Wem, and Eshtatek Lakiva Beishamai, and he lied down on the grave of Beishamai, and Amar, Nanesi Lacha, Nanesi Lacha Matzamais. And the Talmud said, Nanesi, I spoken incorrectly about the bones of Beishamai. If the hidden matters of you Beishamai are as follows, like your Talmud explained, there are other matters that you explained that are even more understandable. Amru, and the people told over of this Talmud, this Rav Yeshua, his teeth were always darkened from the fact he always fasted to do tshuva for that which the way he spoke about Beishamai. Says the Gemara, now pulling a full circle, now that we quoted a whole brisa. What do we see in this brisa? We see that Beishamai said to Beis Hillel that the vessel is applicable not only to you, but to him. Not only to Amaretz, but to you, the Chaver, as well. Why? Why is the vessel of Amaretz have anything to do with you, Talmid Chacham? So articulates the Gemara, Al Mashailina Mineyu. We see that you must borrow utensils from the Amaretz. And that's the reason we're going to have to be more machmir on the kelim of the Amaretz. So I asked the Gemara, I don't understand. So why in our Mishnah are we allowed to taivel keli v'tol keli for truma? Why are we not concerned that the keli is going to come tamei and the chaver, the Talmid Chacham, is going to borrow that keli from the Amaretz? Answers the Gemara, Kishalina minayu, when you borrow a keli from Amaretz, metalina leho, you might borrow it, but you immerse it in order to make it kosher. Says Mar Yachid, Adjunale, Beisham the Beis Hillel, Kishalina minayu. So why did Beis Hillel tell it to Beishamai, like you're Kishalina minayu, when we borrow from you, metalina leho, we taivel it, and therefore there's no problem. Answers the Gemara, Tamei Meis, Ba'i hazaya gimel v'zayin. That which something became tamei meis, you need to sprinkle on the third and the seventh day. Umana gimel v'zayin. Umana l'shiva yaimi loy moshli inchi. People are not on top of the counting; they're not going to count properly the 7 days. V'hatbila loy mamnin, and therefore we don't believe. They're not going to be on top of being taivel and counting it for the 3rd and 7th day. Says the Gemara, really? Do we not believe the Amaretz that he went to the mikvah? We learned earlier, they are Naaman. Answers the Gemara, about himself. He has an amanos, but not about his utensils. First teretz. Rava Amar teretz number 2. I divided the kilo. We're talking about his utensils. Lo kasha. Ad Amar me'oilam lo yitbalti kli b'doikli. Ad Amar yitbalti avlo yitbalti kli she'ein bebiv kivasheveres anod. One is that he has more of an amanos, which he said. One is he said I never did it, and one is in which he said that and this is where he's not believed. I was toivel a kli b'toy kli, but not the size of a shaveres anoid. V'atanya, we learned in our brayso this chelik neman amaretz leimer peiros lo yochshu. Avalei noi neman leimer peiros hochshu. Avalei nitmu. That the amaretz has a believability only absolute. He could say loy nitmu, but to say they became tamei v'hochshu, but then he makes caveats within it that he's not believed to say. And now it says the Gemara, as we finish up, we just said a moment ago that the Ma'aretz is believed to say that himself he went to the mikvah, just not for the kalim. Ask the Gemara, really? V'aguva mi mehemden, is he believed on his body itself? V'atani went to the brayso, a chaver shabala hazis, a chaver tabachacham that comes to sprinkle on the Ma'aretz the 3rd and 7th day, mezilav miyad. He sprinkles on him right away. Amaretz shabalazais. But if Amaretz comes, we wait and we count ourselves. So why are you telling me with regard to his own tumavitayra? He's on top of it. We see clearly in a brayso that when a Talmid Chacham comes, we go right away and we sprinkle. We assume he waited the 3rd and the 7th day. But in Amaretz, we wait 3 more days in order to ensure that at least 3 days have passed. Cause the beginning they're not believe them to say how many days passed, therefore it becomes a kula in the end that he's able to believe that the end of this process he went to the mikvah. Let's just learn one more Gemara and we'll stop over there. We said in the Mishnah Case number 2, the outside, the inside, the handles of the keli are all considered separate entities that have one part with regard to truma, not kodesh. What are these entities? The outside, the inside, the handle, the ear, and the handle, all different parts of the keli are tahirim. If the inside becomes tamei, it all becomes tamei. This is where we see that the keli is considered to be comprised of many different parts. We'll pick it up from the base that's Tiva, in the next year tomorrow.